One thing that we haven't done very often recently that we used to do at GLPA meetings right before we start the door prizes is sometimes it's kind of fun to tell some stories. If you have any stories to tell about interesting things that have happened to you related to the planetarium in the last year. And I'll get it started with a story that I have probably told before, and most of you might have heard this, but just to set the stage. And I'm going to take the microphone off of here, and maybe we can run the microphone around so you don't have to waste time coming up here. But if anybody has any, even humorous stories, they're the most fun to talk about that have happened to you in the last year. And for example, let me tell you one that I have told many times before, but this sticks in my mind. It was during a lunar eclipse, and the lunar eclipse was on a weeknight. And of course, at our planetarium, we had an event. We had opened up for the weeknight. That day, we got a call from a parent who was extremely upset that we scheduled an eclipse on a school night, and wanted to know if we would reschedule it for the weekend. Yeah, and it's that kind of thing that I think all of us have encountered. It's that kind of stories that I'm looking at. I'll tell you one more that happened to me many, many years ago when I still worked at the planetarium in Ann Arbor. And in those days, we ran our shows off of a reel-to-reel tape deck. And in the case of the planetarium in Ann Arbor, the reel-to-reel tape deck was under the console, basically at your feet, at your knees. Some of you might remember the show Cosmos, which was produced after Carl Sagan did the original Cosmos series. And many of us did run the show Cosmos. In fact, we ran it quite a bit. And that was on reel-to-reel. And I was running that show one day, and as I was sitting there, and this was a manual console. There wasn't any automation. Even Mark Perkins hadn't even automated our slide projectors yet, I don't think, Mark. I don't think he had. Anyway, I'm sitting there, and I move my feet around, and I feel like I think is like a gum wrapper on the floor or something, And I didn't pay much attention to it because I'm busy actually bringing up slide projectors, bringing up special effects and all this kind of thing. And the show ran just fine. I let the people out. I go back to the console and look underneath. The take-up reel, the reel-to-reel tape deck had somehow malfunctioned. The entire show had dumped on the floor. Fortunately, it still somehow ran across the heads, and it ran just fine, but the entire show dumped on the floor, and I had stepped on it. So, fortunately, that was not our master copy of the show. Yeah. So that's the kind of thing I'm thinking about. Anybody have any other stories like that? And if not, that's fine. Somebody want to help me with the microphone too? I'll run around. Buck's got a story.
There are idioms that older people kind of are used to and younger people maybe don't know about. Last Thursday, the solar eclipse, and my astronomy club had an event, and we had about 150 people on the baseball field getting to look at the solar eclipse, and we were really excited. And the kids, as part of that, did a bake sale and did their gift shop, if you saw my talk. And they brought in, I don't know, like $170 from all the stuff that they did. And then we looked at how we had to pay out, and we ended up, they only made about $50, and they were very, very disappointed. And I pointed out to them that when a planetarium does a community event like that, often the planetarium has to pay money to get everything together, and they often come out in the red, and that they had done really well, they came out in the black. And I had 20 kids looking at me very expectantly, and my wife had to explain to them that in the old days, bookkeepers wrote in black, but when it became negative, they used red ink. And so if you're in the black, that's good, and if you're in the red, that's bad. And they said, oh, so that was good.
Anybody else? Oh, way over there, Dan.
I want to take a minute just to do a quick John Schroer story, which many people who have been at this for a while know. My first year at GLPA was in 2005 when I was one of the hosts in Grand Rapids last time. And John Schroer, very kindly, was sort of the first person to get me involved in GLPA. He was the first planetarian I'd worked with, not outside of my own dome. And in my very first year of the conference, in addition to hosting duties, he made me assistant door prize duties or whatever. And so, at the very last day of the conference, we were helping to get the door prizes up on the stage in the auditorium in Grand Rapids, which you will see next year. There's a little elevator to help with that, to get up on stage. And John Short got stuck in the elevator when it broke. And unfortunately, John spent the entire door prize awarding in the elevator. As we tried to rescue him, we opened the doors at the top and we were hauling out the door prizes, which of course are the most important thing. Poor John was stuck in the elevator. And finally, right before the very last prize, we managed to get John out. And of course, as always, he was smiling and joyous and happy. And he has never held it against me that I got him stuck in an elevator and had to take over his door prize duties. And of course, he continued to make sure I was involved in GLPA ever since. And the new members here, it's a great shame that you didn't get a chance to meet him because he always made sure he met the new members. And for the old members, hopefully we can carry on doing exactly what John did and welcome the new members and always have a smile on our face and keep GLPA going and always find a way to get the new people involved in the organization, even if they get us stuck in elevators.
In connection with that, last night during the tributes, I was thinking that when we all cross over to the other side, one of the first people we'll see will be John with that smile on his face saying, "Wait till you see the gate prizes I've got."
That wouldn't surprise me a bit. Anybody else? Or are you all just looking at the door prizes? The rest of your lives were dull in the last year, right? Chris.
It's a short one. I had the strangest situation happen. It might have happened to you. You guys have little kids visit your planetarium, and they have totally honest. This happened for the first time. We finished the show, Zuba Noja New Week. You're playing with them, and then right at the end, they're getting their coats on, and everyone's heading out. And one kid comes and turns around and gives me a hug. And then it started a hug avalanche. Every single kid. And you're a teacher in a public school, so you're like, oh, stay back, 2 feet, whoa, whoa. And they literally, were crawling on, it was an avalanche of hugs, and I didn't know what to do except just, oh, God, thanks, guy. So if you ever have it happen, it's pretty cool, but scary.
Brought up an idea, didn't it?
Actually, a story to sort of go along with that one. I was doing a planetarium show, and for one of our shows, we sort of walk around the theater. And I get to the front of the theater, and all of a sudden, there is a child stuck to my leg. And so this is a scripted show. You can't stop because it just keeps going. And so I'm sitting there trying to continue on with the show while I'm shaking this child off of my leg. The parents finally pried him off of me and was able to continue the show, but I kept a straight face and I didn't laugh the whole time.
You must have done something.
I probably told this one 20 years ago or something, but it's worth repeating. A number of years ago, we were doing maintenance on the A3P, and it was myself and one of my students, undergrad. And we did the usual planet alignment and all that kind of stuff. But for some reason, we couldn't get the sun to look right. It was just too faint. We got frustrated, and I said, let's go off campus for lunch. So we were sitting at some sit-down place across the table. Conversations go among friends. The topics change here and there. And we had been talking about the problems of the planet. But then we went on to whether politics were there. In the meantime, a young businesswoman sat down at a table within earshot, as I learned later. And then our topic switched to get back to the sun. And in the corner of my eye, I could see she was, in the peripheral vision, she's getting all agitated and gulping her coffee. And finally, on the way out, stops at our table and looks at me and says, "If the sun is too dim, I'd like to know what you think you can do about it." And she walked out.
I wish you would have answered her. That would have been even better. Anyone else? That's kind of fun, isn't it? Uh-oh. Jeannie. That's okay. It didn't sound like they remembered the one I said.
Do all of you make to-do lists where you say, I'm going to do this and this? Okay, well, I had one in my pocket when I went grocery store shopping some years ago. And I think on this to-do list, I asked things about grading papers and things at home, duties at home. And one was fix moon. Well, I lost this note. It was in my pocket, and I didn't know what had happened to it. But apparently, on the note, I had my information with a phone number, and somebody called me who found this note, and they said, "Well, we found this, and the phone number is here, and." If you need this, I can get this to you. It looked pretty serious. Either that, or you could hear some hesitation, like you're a nut, But they were curious. They wanted to know what was fixed moon. So I explained that I was a planetarium director. There was another pause at the other end. Well, what's that? The person wasn't familiar with that. They knew they had somebody kind of nutty on the phone. So I said, well, why don't you come over and I'll show you what a planetarium is. So they brought the note over to my planetarium, and I showed them the planetarium. They were very impressed, and they said that was the best thing I ever found.
Has anyone gotten a call asking what kind of plants you grow? Yeah. Anybody else?
I do have some.
Oh, okay, Jenny.
Because when you said the Zubinelli Janubi story, this is a John Schroer Zubinelli Janubi story. I remember a time John, he gave, Zubinelli Janubi's that GLPA show, and it's a kid show. And he gave this show to a group. Now, Detroit has a very large Arab community, and there was a group that came, from Dearborn, so it's an Arab community. And it's elementary kids, but they're chaperones. So I was giving the show when he said Zubinelli Janubi, or Zubi. I don't know if John knows this. Okay, you're going to have to help me on this. So during the show, it's a live show, there's live interaction, so there's a live portion to it. So when John said Zubi, he heard some giggling, from the women's chaperones. He didn't quite understand, what's this giggling. So after the show was done, the ladies pulled John aside and said, Zubi is kind of a slang term in Arabic, and it refers to a certain
daddy parts.
Daddy parts. Okay. Daddy parts. Okay. So Zubi, Detroit has that. They're one of the large urban communities, so it's kind of unique, demographics. So that's something, that's unique. So that's what Zubi is slang for daddy parts. Okay.
The story about the little child hanging on the leg during your live show reminded me of something that happened to me this past year. I give my live shows at a console in the back, and kids cry. We're a children's museum, and that happens, and you hope that the parents will take them out. Well, this child kept crying, And it took me a while to figure out that she had gotten stuck in our folding seats. And so she had the seat around her waist and the back around that, and her feet were on the floor, and she was scared and she was screaming. And so it took us about 5 minutes to get her out, and she was fine, but my show was ruined.
When we first opened the Delta College Planetarium, that just reminded me, and the seats were brand new. The springs on those cushions were really, really stiff. And if you get a first grader or second grader that doesn't weigh too much, they'll sit down and it'll just go right up like this, and then just go right back down into the seat with their legs sticking straight up. Yeah, absolutely. The head was up, yeah. Yep. I'm really amazed. You guys have a lot of great stories.
Well, this was a number of years ago. It was a Friday afternoon. I was doing the last show of the day. Last show of the last day of the week. So I'm almost ready to close the doors, and I see this little person. We're in the middle of one wall, and there's kind of a corner. So he must have gotten off the elevator, and this little kid is dragging, he's probably 4 or 5, dragging an adult, turned out to be his father, around the corner. And I'm looking at them thinking, are they going to the restroom? Are they going to come to me? What are they going to do? I'm going to hold the door open. And all of a sudden, he yells at the top of his little voice, "Dad, Dad, there's the sanitarium." And the dad just kept walking with him. But the dad gets up to me, and I am crying by this time. And he gets up to me, and all he could say was, "Sorry." It's like, no, he has it spot on. How did he know after my week that that's exactly what this was? So like the aquarium or, terrarium, sanitarium.
Our staff regularly called it the sanitarium. Yeah. Whoa, this is going to go on. This is cool. Who had their hand up? Sheldon.
Well, your story about Arab translations reminds me. I used to teach the stars in Cygnus, and Alberio, the eyeballs, and then the tail feathers is what I would always say. But we do have an Arabic population in Peoria. Lebanese, we're one of the largest Lebanese populations outside of Lebanon. And so I'd say, does anybody here know what denim means? And one little kid said, yes, it means bird butt. Close.
I'll remember that. Where? Oh, okay.
So many of you have had stories about being welcoming to new members and whatnot, and I will say last year was my first time coming to one of these conferences, and I have been an extremely shy person in my life, but especially this year, and last year, you have done a very good job at being welcoming and making people like myself and everything feel comfortable. So I guess I wanted to let you know, you're doing it right. So.
I like to tell everybody this is the friendliest group in the universe, and it truly is.